Today we're doing a video on a families set that go by the Grove Street Families, aka Families, or GSF. The Grove, or Groves. The Grove Street Families is an African-American street gang and one of the oldest street gangs in Los Santos, San Andreas. They are also the native gang of a family's OG, Carl Johnson aka CJ. They are the sworn enemy of the Ballas and are in an ongoing war. The families also maintain rivalries with the two Mexican gangs in Los Santos, such as the Los Santos Vagos and the Varrios Los Aztecas. Their rivalry with the Varrios Los Aztecas is not nearly as intense as it is with the Ballas and Vagos. However, both gangs will still commonly fight. The Grove Street family's leader, Sweet, has a sister that ends up dating a high-ranking member of the Aztecas, while CJ befriends him, much to the disapproval of Sweet. Most of their territory can be found in the low-income and run-down neighborhoods in the far east of the city, though they also have small pockets of territory elsewhere, including the rich area of Temple and the popular tourist destination of Santa Maria Beach. They are easily identifiable by their green gang color. The high-ranking members go by Sean Sweet Johnson and Carl C.J. Johnson, as well as former lieutenants and OGs, Lance Ryder Wilson and Melvin Big Smoke Harris. As far as street gangs in San Andreas go, the Grove Street families are depicted as more honorable than their rival gangs. Coming from a background of older traditions, they are against hard drugs being sold on their turf as opposed to the Ballas and Vagos. They are very stubborn, and Sweet refuses to adapt to the changes in the Los Santos criminal underworld. They are well known, however, for committing numerous other crimes and violent acts, including gun running and arms trafficking, gang banging, gang warfare, murder, robbery, burglary/theft, gang-related homicide, vandalism, and street violence. Grove Street members are mostly seen unarmed and with some carrying pistols, and they will start carrying Tech 9 South after CJ robs a veteran's house with Ryder. When CJ sprays over all tags in Los Santos, they will be seen carrying Desert Eagles, SMGs, and knives instead. They can occasionally be seen smoking marijuana and drinking malt liquor while talking and hanging around in groups. Green clothing is a dead giveaway, and members will often flash their gang signs. Upon spotting a Balla, Vago, or Azteca gang member, they will often engage in a violent confrontation, especially Ballas. Their territory includes Ganton, especially Grove Street, considered the heart and headquarters of Grove Street families' territory. Playa del Seville, after Grove Street families make peace with the Seville Boulevard families. Temple, after Grove Street families making peace with the Temple Drive families. Vinewood Cemetery, Santa Maria Beach. Glen Park, after CJ gets sent there to take it over. 2 or more Idlewood Hoods, after Sweet discusses the future on the Grove Street families and sends CJ to take it over. This is what we know about the backstory on the Grove Street families. The Grove Street families were formed in Ganton, initially in Grove Street, before spreading to the rest of Ganton and other neighborhoods. History before the late 80s is unknown, and much of what happened to the families during the late 80s is also unknown. However, what is known is that the families are one of the oldest gangs in Los Santos. This possibly means that they are older than the Ballas, who formed during the 1970s, giving the possibility that the families evolved from the 1960s, or possibly even earlier. The families also have a history of a traditional, intense, and bloody rivalry with the Ballas. Specifically, when the gang war started is unknown, but the rivalry between the two gangs was in full swing as early as 1987. The start and reason of their rivalry with the Los Santos Mexican gangs is unknown, though their rivalry with the Vagos has most likely developed due to their expansion and growth around their territory, along with their heavy crack cocaine influence. Despite being divided into different sets, the families were much more united before the early 1990s. While Sweet is adamantly anti-narcotic, Smoke believes that the Grove Street families have fallen from power because of his refusal to sell drugs. Their unwillingness to enter the drug trade has dragged the Grove Street families out of prominence in the years leading up to the game's storyline. The fact that Sweet insists the gang shouldn't deal in narcotics, the deaths of OGs such as Tony, Big Devil, and Little Devil, and the abandonment of OGs such as Big Bear and B-Dup has largely weakened them from their previous dominant position in Los Santos. Likewise, the splitting of the Grove families into different enemy sets, the Temple Drive families, and the Seville Boulevard families has massively increased violence from within the families and further weakened them. The fact that the Ballas are extremely successful at spreading crack cocaine into their territory to weaken the families also in part due to Big Smoke's involvement has led to the sorry state of the Grove Street families upon CJ's return from Liberty City in 1992. Prior to 1992, the families also controlled the southern portion of East Los Santos and Idlewood. Although they lost Idlewood before 1987, they likely also controlled Willowfield to Emmett's presence there, specifically the Seville Boulevard families. Their refusal to enter the drugs trade, especially crack cocaine, has put them at a severe disadvantage to the other gangs, such as the Ballas, who are able to make much profit from this. The Grove Street families also face the major problem of crack cocaine spread throughout their territory, largely due to the Ballas and Big Smoke. Crack cocaine turns members into weak and hopeless addicts and experiences high-ranking members with the money that can be made from the drugs trade, as is the case with B-Dup, thus drawing them away from gangbanging. The Ballas attempt to finish off the remaining OGs in a drive-by shooting as they are leaving the funeral of Beverly Johnson. However, they are only successful at destroying Big Smoke's car. The remaining OGs escape to Grove Street on bicycles while avoiding the Ballas car. The Grove Street families then attempt to decrease the influence of crack cocaine in their territory by killing some Ballas members at a crack house in the Idlewood complexes. Sweet orders CJ and Ryder for the mission, and they successfully kill the Ballas inside the house. This gradually decreases the influence of crack cocaine in GSF territory, and drug dealers become less prevalent on the streets in Ganton. In retaliation for the events of the previous mission, the Kilo Tre Ballas attempt a drive-by on Grove Street. Luckily, Sweet, CJ, Ryder, and Big Smoke are able to catch them on the way to Grove Street while pulling out of a Cluck and Bell drive-through in Willowfield. A car chase begins, and the OGs are able to blow the car up and kill the Ballas. The Grove Street families then gain a substantial victory of the Ballas when CJ, Ryder, Sweet, and Big Smoke went into the Ballas territories and killed more than a dozen of the Roland Heights Ballas and the Kilo Tre Ballas in a drive-by shooting. Sweet then goes to his girlfriend's house in Playa del Seville, but unfortunately, he is caught by the Seville Boulevard families and enemy Grove set. CJ then killed every Seville Boulevard families member who was attacking Sweet. Sweet states that there needs to be an end to green-on-green violence if the Grove Street families are ever able to become strong again. CJ and Ryder stole various weaponry and ammunition in Los Santos in a home invasion, catalyst, and robbing Uncle Sam. In doing so, the Grove Street families become better equipped and start carrying Tech 9 submachine guns. Sweet then gets word that a former member of the Grove Street families, now a Balla called Little Weasel, has been selling drugs and is now in hiding with the Ballas at Glen Park. Sweet orders CJ to kill him. CJ then kills Little Weasel and many other Ballas at Glen Park during a gang war. Following the gang war, the Grove Street families gain the territory of Glen Park from the Ballas. At this point, the GSF are now much stronger and are on a more equal footing with the Ballas. The Ballas, in retaliation for the Glen Park gang war, attempt to start their own gang war right on Grove Street. Luckily, a member of the families is able to catch the Ballas on the way and warn Sweet and the Uz, who are then able to prepare. They block off Grove Street and prepare themselves. CJ, Sweet, and other members of the GSF are then able to successfully defend their territory. The Ballas then hold a funeral for Little Weasel, who CJ previously killed. Many Ballas OGs are attending the funeral, including Kane of the Front Yard Ballas. CJ, Sweet, and members of the GSF are able to crash the funeral and kill many high-ranking Ballas members, including Kane. An attempt to fully bring the Grove Street families back to their full power. A meeting is organized between the three different family sets Ganton, Playa de Seville, and Temple at the Jefferson Motel. Sweet, CJ, Big Smoke, and Ryder attend the meeting, and Sweet is voted the representative for the Grove Street families. However, the LSPD and SWAT raids and breaks up the meeting, and a battle ensues inside the motel between families gang members and SWAT officers. Luckily, CJ managed to rescue Sweet, and they are able to escape with the help of Big Smoke and Ryder. In an attempt to fully finish the Ballas, a large gang war is organized between the Ballas and the families under the Mulholland intersection. However, Sweet is shot and injured, and the police manage to break up the gang war. Sweet is then arrested and sent to a prison hospital upstate, while CJ is captured by Crash and warned to stay away from Big Smoke. At this point, both Ryder and Big Smoke have completely defected from the Grove Street families and into the crack cocaine business, aligning themselves with Crash and the Ballas, as well as handing over the green saber involved in the murder of Carl's mother to Crash officers. This leaves the GSF with no leaders or OGs. They soon fall from power again and become subservient to the Ballas and Vagos. Remaining GSF members are either dead, imprisoned, addicted to drugs, go into hiding, left the gang, defect to the Ballas, or become employed by Big Smoke and his drug organization. The Ballas resume spreading crack cocaine through their territory again to control them. Soon enough, the Ballas managed to control the entirety of what had been GSF territory, including Ganton and Grove Street, Playa del Seville, Temple, the Vinewood Cemetery, and Santa Maria Beach. They also recapture back Glen Park. The families and their allies, the Varrios Los Aztecas, who begin to suffer the same fate, essentially become nearly defunct and inactive, and the Ballas and Vagos control the streets of Los Santos. Carl is forced to continue working for Crash away from the city in exile. The Grove Street families then have no more significance throughout the rest of the year, apart for some who work with Big Smoke and Ryder, while CJ becomes enveloped in a new lifestyle away from gangbanging and hood life, while Sweet is incarcerated. Thanks for watching today's video. Come back tomorrow to hear about another gang.